In this video, we're gonna be talking about Turbo Rhystic Study. Hi and welcome to a deck tech video for Thrasios and SMASHER, basically sans white, no color identity white. As the goal of this deck is to get a Rhystic Study into play as fast as possible. But why? What's the premise of this crazy idea? So in a previous video I talked about the disparity and, well, that Rhystic Study isn't winning versus Ad Nauseam. Or well, Ad Nauseam wasn't the only card, it was basically Turbo Win, Turbo Combo versus Turbo Rhystic Study. Rhystic Study basically didn't work. And a big reason for this is that you basically don't draw enough interaction versus opponents that are going fast. If an Ad Naus resolves, they are drawing something around 17 to 20 cards, and they're going to have untapped mana, which means that they can afford their Swan Songs and Flusterstorms. If you're casting your Rhystic Study turn 2, passing turn, you're mostly tapped out, which means that your Flusterstorm, your Swan Song you draw into, you don't have the mana for them. However, on my big leaderboard of cards, Rhystic Study is actually on 64th position from 239 games, with a score of 23.53, with the highest score is Fastest Oracle on 24.39. I will make a video about this in the future and explain true skill, basically making an MMR or ELO rating on all cards, you could say. I'll get back to this. For now, all you need to know is that Rhystic Study still wins games. It just doesn't beat like or stop, I should say, turbo victory attempts. Which actually takes us back to this deck list. So here we have a bunch of free to cast interaction that is going to do something versus those pesky, annoying turbo attempts. Basically, the entire premise is this. We're on turn 2, we pass turn, we have a Rhystic Study in play, we're tapped out, we don't have any mana, and Pontus, or an evil turbo player, goes for the win. And we're gonna draw cards with a Rhystic Study, and we need a high density of interaction, free to cast, that can stop this. But for now, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, like step 1 is still to get that Rhystic Study into play. And Crazy Mons have included 10 cards that will achieve this. So we obviously have Rhystic Study, Demonic Tutor, Rhystic Tutor. Here's actually some lore fun things. So the Rhystic name came in Prophecy, I think it was. It doesn't matter. But there was a lot of cards that had a cool effect, and if an opponent pays mana, there was no effect. And the blue version of that card was Rhystic Study, which draws you card unless they pay 1. Rhystic Tutor is the black version of the Rhystic series, and it reads, unless any player pays 2, search your library for a card and put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. Now you're gonna say, Mons, that's a terrible card. And you're very correct. The thing is that in the early game, like if we're like the start turn 1 or turn 2, no one has mana. Mostly people are kinda tapped out. But you don't need to play it if you don't want to. Praetor's Grasp will steal a Rhystic Study from an opponent, Grim Tutor, Vamp Tutor, Imperial Seal, Demonic Consultation, Tainted Pact, and Gamble. You see, to increase consistency and have a huge percentage chance of getting that Rhystic Study to resolve turn 1 or turn 2, that was the main focus of this deck, or well, the step 1 focus of this deck. We need to grab as many tutors as we possibly can. Now if we had white, that would have been great, because then we have Enlightened Tutor. But I will get back to that later in the video on why we're not on color identity of white. So let's begin by looking at this turn 1 Rhystic Study opening hand. We have an Underground Sea, Dark Ritual, and then a Rhystic Tutor. But we also have a Lion's Eye Diamond, so you can crack the Lion's Eye Diamond in response to the Rhystic Tutor. Discard your entire hand, gain 3 blue mana, Rhystic Tutor resolves, you get your Rhystic Study, and boom, turn 1 Rhystic Study. Great! You can also do Command Tower, Demonic Consultation, Tutor for Ancient Tomb, and have a Rhystic Study turn 2. As long as you have Command Tower, Rhystic Study, and Demonic Consultation in your opening hand, boom, you got it. Now I know what a lot of people of you are going to say, that this is a risk, we could lose the game, but you know, it's a gambling game, kinda. You don't have to do Demonic Consultation, but I think that you should. We can also do a similar thing with the gamble, like use gamble to find key cards we need. Or, for example, if you have 3 mana turn 2 and a gamble in your hand, you can go gamble turn 1, find Rhystic Study, and hope you don't discard Entomb it, go to your turn 2 and resolve your Rhystic Study. I think that's a worthy risk to do, because in most cases, you are going to get your Rhystic Study turn 2 with your gamble. Just be brave. Obviously, we can also go Underground Sea, Dark Ritual, Praetor's Grasp, steal an opponent's Rhystic Study, then crack Lion's Eye Diamond and cast the Rhystic Study. Same thing with Grim Tutor. But the best possible opening hand contains one of these 4, because these are the safer ones. Rhystic Study is basically perfect, that's the one you want to have. You don't need a tutor if you have it in your hand, unless you want to like vamp tutor for an Ancient Tomb on turn 2. But I do think that the amount of tutors down to 4 is a little bit too few to secure and guarantee a Rhystic Study turn 2. And trust me, Praetor's Grasp does the job quite often. We should probably talk about Drift of Phantasm. This is, in my opinion, tricky. Triple blue is hard to achieve, as a Dark Ritual is just making a lot of black tutors possible. I did actually experiment a lot with Drift of Phantasm when I was trying to fiddle this deck together, but it did get there sometimes, but it felt awkward. However, if you want to feel more safe and secure, I think you should consider Drift of Phantasm. Once again, if you have a Lion's Eye Diamond in your hand, and you can cast or transmute the Drift of Phantasm on turn 1 or turn 2, then you have it. You just need to accept the part where Lion's Eye Diamond discarding your entire hand is a requirement for Drift of Phantasm to kinda get you there. I also want to give a shout out to Crystal Vein. So this is a turn 2 Rhystic Study, because you're gonna sacrifice the Crystal Vein for 2 colorless, and with Command Tower on turn 2, you have a Rhystic Study in play. It is basically a third variant to Ancient Tomb, City of Traitors, basically. As long as you have one of those 3 lands, Rhystic Study, and any land that produces blue, you got it. I want to focus a little bit more on Lion's Eye Diamond and really highlight that it's quite good at getting the job done, because if you have a Demonic Tutor, Lion's Eye Diamond and 2 mana, they don't even need to tap for blue, they can tap for double black. The 2 lands there could be 2 swamps, or a Urza Saga and a swamp, and you still have the Rhystic Study turn 2 thanks to the Lion's Eye Diamond. And depending on your hand, I think it's worth for the cause, for the greater good of just sacking your hand, get the enchantment into play, and rebuild your hand with your opponent's casting spells. The same thing can kinda be achieved with a Vamp Tutor and a Gitaxian Probe. Now, this only works if Gitaxian Probe is kinda in your hand. Lion's Eye Diamond without the Gitaxian Probe with a Vamp Tutor won't work, because you need to have a card draw effect on the stack when you crack the Lion's Eye Diamond in this case. Lion's Eye Diamond will also help you make Metalcraft to achieve more fast ritual mana on turn 1 with a Mox Opal. For example, if you have a Seat of the Synod, a artifact land, Lotus Petal, Mox Opal, you have a turn 1 Rhystic Study. And here Ragavan can help you too. By the way, Ragavan and 2 lands and a Rhystic Study, 4 cards, makes a turn 2 Rhystic Study too. However, truth be told, it's kinda tricky to make sure that your opening hand always have that Rhystic Study available to you, as a lot of hands could basically look like this: Burgeoning, Mox Amber, and 5 lands. Great. Well, here's the thing. With Thrasios, the Triton hero, as your boss, this hand is kinda okay. This is, if you top take a land here, it is a Thrasios activation turn 2. And sure, that isn't equally strong, but look at the amount of mana. Whatever you draw into, you can afford. So I would actually like to say that as the focus of this deck is to generate so much mana as a ritual concept early in the game to get your Rhystic Study in play, that is going to synergize and work pretty good with a Thrasios Commander variant. But there's another cool concept we definitely should talk about too, and that is consulting for a victory turn 1. Or well, just having Thassa's and Consult, Lotus Petal and 2 lands, and boom, here you go, this is a turn 2 win attempt. This is an opening hand that can win on turn 1. You need 2 lands, so another land besides the island, Lotus Petal, Thassa's Consult, boom, you won, turn 1. Tropical Island, Bird of Paradise, second turn, Underground Sea, you have 3 mana, Thassa's Consult. The One Ring is also pretty strong if you can get it into play early in the game, like a Command Tower Mana Vault is a turn 2, the One Ring. If you have an Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, Elvish Spirit Guide, it's a turn 1, the One Ring. And I think that Rhystic Study is a stronger card drawing engine if you're going up against a stormy opponent, but to improve the chance of having a great opening hand that is preferably turn 1 or turn 2 Rhystic Study, having a turn win attempt with Thassa's Consult, or a big value engine from the One Ring, or just a huge amount of mana to activate Thrasios, we're getting very good opening hands in general. Like this hand has a City of Traitors into Talisman of Dominance. Wait a minute. No, this is a turn 1, the One Ring, so ignore this one. Ignore that one. Ignore that one. Here we go. These 4 cards. So, Rite of Flame into Lotus Petal, land drop City of Traitors, 4 mana, the One Ring. Perfect. This hand is very bad. You have to mulligan that one. This one is tricky. I might keep it because we have City of Traitors, Underworld Breach, Lotus Petal, Lion's Eye Diamond. That's a lot of mana. I think we're gonna mulligan this in the end. If it had like one gamble, we would won. Yeah, win, easy. The other 3 cards are making it wrong, basically. This is a turn 2, the One Ring, with a City of Traitors, Ancient Tomb, boom. But we also have... the other cards we can't actually cast. Mimano is not going to be able to activate, but this is a killer hand. You keep this one. This hand has a lot of mana, but also a Steel enchantment. I added that one because I am playing against a lot of Smothering Tides and Rhystic Studies in general from my opponents, and steal it. We are probably going to Chromox this Bird of I think I'm gonna go Chromoxing the Deathrite Shaman to Bird of Paradise and then land drop. That's the opener. We could go we're going Bird of Paradise here. Passing turn. And hopefully we will steal someone else Rhystic Study. Here's an example of a lot of mana. So we have Gemstone Caverns. Pre-game effect, we might pitch... we're pitching the Dark Ritual here because... Exploration, 1, 2, 3, drop that one. Thrasios into play, turn 1, and a Thrasios activation, turn 2. It's not great, it's not perfectly where we want to be, but you're going to draw cards with your Thrasios here. Here we have Taiga, Mana Vault, One Ring, turn 2. I thought this was a Simian Spirit Guide for 1 second, but it isn't. This hand is actually getting there, right? So, turn 1... Training Grounds, turn 2 Taiga, cast command... What do we draw here? Draw 1, 2. Turn 3 Bloodstain Mire, crack that, Dark Ritual into Seedborn Muse. Yeah, you're winning that one, definitely. Seedborn Muse Thrasios Training Grounds on turn 3 is very strong. That's a lot stronger than Rhystic Study even. You're going to draw more cards than that. Here we have that Polluted Delta, Tropical Island, Demonic Tutor, Lion's Eye Diamond, and we get a Rhystic Study in play. Turn 2. We're losing here 2 lands and a Fierce Guardianship, and I think that's a worthy sacrifice of having the card drawing Master Boss enchantment in play on turn 2. A big reason why we're playing that Lion's Eye Diamond is because we want to win with an Underworld Breach combo as well. So the Lion's Eye Diamond can kind of help you get your Rhystic Study to get into play early, but then it's going to win the game with an Underworld Breach Brain Freeze. Because after drawing a ton of cards with your Seedborn Muse like I showcased, or your Rhystic Study, or your The One Ring, You need to win somehow, you need to finish it, and this is one of the pathways to get there, including that Thrasios consult I also showcased. This takes us to Kinnan and Basalt Monolith. I did actually consider this, and when I sculpted, or when I basically sat and shuffled and looked at opening hands, trying to see if Kinnan was worthy to have inside the build, my verdict was that it didn't really help getting the Rhystic Study in play enough. Like, most of the opening hands that had a Kinnan in it didn't need Kinnan to get the Rhystic Study mana. What I mean is this: in a lot of situations, your Praetor's Grasp Grim Tutor requires that you achieve 6 mana turn 2 for Grim Tutor to resolve, Tutor for Rhystic Study, and cast the Rhystic Study at the same turn. Kinnan could help you with that, but truth be told, I didn't find him necessary. Like, he didn't help achieving Rhystic Study opening hands enough. Even though this is like a perfect example of a turn 2 Rhystic Study if you don't have a land. Pretend that you don't have a land, Command Tower, Elvish Spirit Guide, boom, Kinnan is in play, turn 2, Lotus Petal, and that's 2 mana with Command Tower, free total to Rhystic Study turn 2. But it felt a little bit like a win more concept. So I decided to not include Kinnan inside this build, even though it contains a high amount of artifacts and a decent high amount of dorks. And adding in a Basalt Monolith to increase combo potential could be kinda good. I'm not against anyone actually putting Kinnan inside their version of this build, but that's basically the reason why I didn't. That takes us to step 2. We've actually kinda cheated, because step 1 is that Rhystic Study, step 2 is interaction, and step 3 is winning the game. We've kinda already talked about winning the game, because it came natural as we were talking about opening hands, and Thrasios Consult was a variant opening hand that can win. So we have naturally kinda talked about the step 3 part, winning the game. But we need to talk a little bit more about step 2, making sure we don't lose the game, because this is ultimately a control deck. We wanna sit back, lean and relax, and observe our opponents as they are resolving their storm attempts with Adnas, Undual Breach and whatnot. So I have included a lot of different variations of free to cast spells that will somehow interact and stop your opponents from doing evil things. And this is actually why, another reason for Thrasios, as you need your Thrasios in play to activate Fierce Guardianship, Deflecting Swat and Flare of Denial. But this is also where beautifully how the Turbo Rhystic Study key cards, Simian Spirit Guide, Elvish Spirit Guide, is gonna help you so much if they aren't used to get your Rhystic in play. Because with Manamorphous you can convert the mana from the 2 guides into double blue mana, and suddenly you can cast your Flusterstorm and Swan Song. And you don't always need to have a Manamorphous. For example, take a look at this hand. You have Command Tower, 2 guides and a Lotus Petal and a Rhystic Study. This is a turn 1 Rhystic Study with 1 mana floating. I'm going to recommend that you keep your Lotus Petal, consume both guides and your Command Tower to get the Rhystic Study in play on turn 1, pass turn, and if you draw into your Swan Song, you still have the Lotus Petal to interact with your opponent. Because we need to emphasize this point once more. If you're on turn 3, it's actually been going down since the latest video. Kinda interesting. So, for those that don't know, I observe YouTube games, and I look at how many cards a Rhystic Study draws during that game and when the game finishes. That's basically the values you're watching right now. And I think in the video where I talked about the amount of cards Rhystic Study is drawing, it's around 6 cards, and as you can see it's been kinda going down, as it's now currently sitting at 5.5, which is worse. Or, well, not that worse, but it's still worse. So the important part to make this functional is that you have to have a high density of free to cast or somewhat very cheap to cast interaction that will stop your opponents so the turn cycle can keep on going and you can get more Rhystic Study triggers, draw more cards and eventually win with your Underworld Breach or your Thrasios combo yourself. That's it. That's the deck list. Link in the description below of this video if you wanna take a look card by card exactly how I put it together. I should point out though that we are probably going to be swapping cards in and out here and there because it is a work in progress, as it's quite hard to figure out a perfect recipe in understanding the density of tutors you need and the density of free to cast interaction you need as well. I should also point out that I don't actually know if this is going to work. Like, I'm a control player at heart, I see things that my opponents are doing and I'm trying to figure out how to beat that, how to stop that, can I possibly defeat that. I've seen a lot of games on YouTube where someone puts a Rhystic Study in play, someone casts an Adnos, and the Adnos player just wins. The Rhystic Study draws cards, but nothing happens. And I'm trying to figure out how can we perfect this, how can we make this better. And this is basically what I've cooked up so far, and I'm gonna experiment, see if it works, retweak here and there, and I'll keep you guys posted. But for now, this is my Thrasios Vial Smasher Turbo Rhystic Study. I guess I need to look into Tymna Crom Turbo Rhystic Study 2 someday too. In any case, take care guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.